Hey everybody, happy Sunday. I hope you're all doing really well. Welcome back to this Facebook and YouTube and Instagram Live with Advantage College Planning. I am Gina, and I'm really excited because I am joined today by one of my colleagues, Stephanie, and we are going to be jumping into creating different activities based on what students are interested in. Let's go above and beyond just joining another club. It is that time of year when we're getting ready for summer, and a lot of times students are asking us, hey, what can I be doing this summer that could be meaningful, help me grow as a person, also help out on my college application? Or maybe students are already starting to think about next school year, different activities or things they wanted to get involved in. So we thought this would be a good time to talk about this topic. If you can hear me okay, if you can see me okay, go ahead and give me a heart, give me a thumbs up, give me some sort of something to let me know that all my audio and visual are working. That is always super helpful. And we also have the chat feature is activated, so you can also use that to put in your questions that you have along tonight's session. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from, what year your student is. It's really helpful for us to know that. Stephanie and I work with students as early as 8th grade all the way up through the college planning, college application process. So, if you're tuning in and you have an 8th grader or a 10th grader or even a rising senior, just let us know, and that'll help us tailor the information that we share with you this evening to the age and kind of position that your student's at right now in school. Awesome. All right. It looks like all systems are go. So let's go ahead and get
Hey,
started.
Gina, I couldn't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Mhm.
I cannot hear you.
Oh, dear. Okay. Um, that is interesting. Let me put you back out and let you back in. Can you hear me now?
I still can't hear
Oh,
you.
okay. That's very odd because it was just working. Is your volume down? Do we need to turn the volume up okay?
I don't know if anyone else can in the community, if they can let us
Yep.
know.
So it seems like everybody else is able to hear. Okay, great. Awesome. All right, so Stephanie, I am just going to send you a quick message and let you know I can hear you. And so we will just message back and forth and it will be great. Perfect. Okay, so here is our game plan for tonight. Stephanie and I are going to talk
You can
about
hear.
this part of the application process. It's really important the way that students are getting involved in their activities and the way that they're building up their applications. And so Stephanie comes to our team with so much background and experience. Before working with Advantage College Planning as a consultant, she also previously worked with in a lot of different roles, but also as a reader at a very highly selective private institution. So she has a lot of experience seeing what it takes to have a strong application at one of those institutions. That's why I was really excited to have Stephanie's perspective here for our session this evening. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to give Stephanie the signal to see if she can pick up what I'm putting down. Let's see how we're doing with our nonverbal communication. And we'll talk about why. I'd love for Stephanie to tell us why colleges love these types of passion-driven, self-started projects that we're going to be talking about tonight. So the goal for our discussion is to talk about going above and beyond just the day-to-day joining a club and think about doing something that is personal and passionate specifically for the student.
I still can't hear anything. I
That's
don't
okay.
know
You know
if
what?
we can log.
So, all right, I'm just going to jump in and keep us moving forward, and then we'll have Stephanie try to kind of log off and log back on and see how her sound is working in a bit. So, to recap, what we're going to be talking about tonight is these personal projects. So students all the time are talking to us about what can I do to, again, grow as a person, stand out on my college applications. And so one of the things that we work with a lot of our students on is doing some type of personal, we don't love the term passion project, but I do have passion driven here, more of a personal project, something that they are just really interested in for the sake of that activity, something that they're being genuinely driven to do. Right. And so what this is not, a parent coming in and signing a student up for something that then the student that is mostly adult run, right? This is not an adult saying, hey, here is a package in a box, right? That now you just need to go and execute. What we're going to be talking about is something that the student seeks out themselves and sees through. So let's talk about a couple of quick examples so you can understand the types of things I'm talking about. These are real things that students that we've worked with have done. I currently have a student who is interested in mechanical engineering, and he's also interested in go-karts. And so he and a friend have started and actually have now completed building their very own actual usable, drivable go-kart completely from scratch. From beginning to end, they had to buy all of the parts. They had to do fundraising and come up with my student is currently working part-time at a fast food restaurant to save up money to buy the parts that he needs to create this go-kart. Right? That is not something that anybody told him to do. That is just something that he really wanted to do. So now his next step is we've talked about coming up with a manual for the steps that he made, maybe coming up with changes to the prototype, etc., to keep this project going. I have another student who loves doing nails. That is her vibe. She loves doing nails for herself, her friends, her family. She ended up completing a nail tech service course, nail tech certification course last summer, and spent this whole year volunteering at different sites doing women's nails for free at different organizations that support women who have been struggling. Right. And then the last one, I'll tell you, I have a student who had been doing a lot of volunteering with his mom through the Young Men's Service League. And one of the things, when we were talking about all the different volunteering that he'd done, one of the things that he loved the most, because he loved art, was when he would do murals when they would make a mural for a site. And so after talking through, what could we do with that? What could you do with that? He ended up creating an organization and leading it with students all across Wake County, going to different nonprofit organizations like the Salvation Army and offering to create these beautiful, amazing murals for free, with other students from across our area to brighten up these places. He created a website, with the information so people could find him and he could show proof of the projects he was doing, an Instagram page, all of this, right? So those are three very different projects, but that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Okay. And here's why colleges love that. When your students are applying to college, after they look at the grades, after they look at the test scores, the quantitative data, what are they looking at? They're trying to figure out who your student is as a person. What character qualities does your student have that differentiate them from these thousands of other students who are applying who may have a very similar academic profile? And so when a student has a project that they have started from the beginning, that they have seen through, that they have worked really hard on and have spent a lot of time doing, that is demonstrating so many of those character qualities that colleges just can't get enough of, right? We're talking about initiative. We're talking about having impact on the community, curiosity, perseverance through challenges, right? Compassion for others, all of these different things, right? Community mindedness. In some cases, in the case of my student who was doing the murals, there was a lot of leadership, right? Because he was the one person pulling these other students together. The other two students were doing more of an independent type of activity. So these types of projects really stand out when they are truly student-led, because they're showing a level of responsibility and maturity that they're not seeing in every other applicant who's coming through the process. So I'm going to try to add Stephanie to the stage and see if she can hear me yet. All right, not yet. We're going to keep on going. So let's talk about how to brainstorm an authentic project. So as you're sitting down, with your student, maybe thinking about this summer, for example, what we do with our students is we start with what they're already interested in, right? What are they already doing? So if you think about those 3 students that I just rattled off as 3 examples, right? These were the activities they got further into were things that they were already doing in some capacity to start with, right? And I also will say the one student who's interested in mechanical engineering, who's building the go-kart, that very much aligns with major, right? I will tell you these other 2 students with the nails and the mural does not align to the majors that those students likely will be pursuing in college. That was just something, art in one case or nail art in the other, were just very strong talents and personal interests for a student unrelated to their major. So it's okay if the activity isn't 100% major aligned, but if it is, that's great, right? So the first thing you want to do is start thinking about and talking about, okay, what are you already doing? What are you already spending a lot of time doing? What are you curious about, right? What do you want to learn more about? I start off by asking a lot of questions. A big one I like to ask some of my students, kind of, you have to gauge where they're at. Like, again, like I said, we start with students as early as 8th grade. Some of them, if I ask them, what is a problem that you see in the world that you want to solve? Most of my 8th graders are going to look at me like I have 2 heads, right? That's not where they're at, right? But that might be a question I could ask some of my older students. And so these are the types of questions you want to be asking and conversations you want to be having with your student. And then look at, okay, what's the next step? Where can we go further on that? For some students, that might be taking stock of what they're already seeing on their social media feeds, right? Algorithms are always sending us more of what we're saying we want to engage with. And so, what is your teen's algorithm sending them, right? In my one student's case, it was a lot of nail art, right? So, what is the algorithm sending them? And maybe that can give you a spark of something they want to continue with, right? Again, thinking about things that they're already doing that they might want to build further and connections that they might want to make. And then the next step is thinking about, okay, once you're doing something, is there who do you want to benefit from this, right? So for 2 of my students that I was talking about, other people are benefiting from the work that they were doing. So for the nail art student, the first year of this personal project really was very much about her. She was going to get a certificate so that she could legally in our state do nails, right? She could and get paid for that. She could get a job in a salon. She could, have a shop in her home, kind of whatever she wanted to do. It was personal motivation for that. But then over the course of the next few months, she got into communication with an organization that supports women who are kind of working their way through a difficult time, helping them find work and getting them on their feet, housing, all of those important things. And so she just volunteered and said, oh, well, I know, these women are here. I'm here. What if, would they be okay? Would it be okay if I offered my service and started doing their nails? And it just kind of grew from there. And now she's doing that with a few other organizations. So it's okay if initially that activity is only for the student's benefit to grow. Then for the next year, kind of see where you can level up. The last part you need to think about is how to showcase a personal project on the student's application. A lot of times, families and students feel like if I don't have a certificate, if I don't have, this concrete award, I can't prove that I've done this activity or have had this impact. And that's really not true. There are so many different ways and places on the application where students can share this information, not only about the outcome of what they've done, but everything that they've learned all along the way to get there. And so the first place is going to be the activity list. On the Common Application, students will have a maximum of 10 places to share a very small bit of information about activities that have been significant to them. So a personal project would definitely go on the activity list. That's the minimum. But then we can go bigger. One place that a student might want to share more about their personal project, maybe possibly in their personal essay for that would go to all the colleges that they are applying to. So if this personal project really was a big time of growth for a student, if this was a really important pivotal time in the student's life going through the journey of this project, amazing. That could be then a really great topic for their essay, right? But it doesn't have to be. So another place on the application that the student can put information about their personal project could be a section called additional information. It's in the same section of the common application as the main personal essay, but it's secondary to that personal essay. So if the student has more to say about themselves than just this personal project, go with a different topic, right? And then in the additional information section, the student can give a summary of this project, what they learned from it, the experience, all of those things can go in the additional information section. In that section, so my student who did the murals, in that section, we also put a link to, or put the URL for their Instagram site and for their website. So this way, if admissions wanted to look at the website, look at the Instagram, they could. Many universities will not take the time to do that. It really just depends on the school, but we put that information there just in case, so that the admissions officers would have that as a place to learn more. Then there's also the letters of recommendation. So depending on what the activity is, the letters of recommendation may or may not reflect that. I will say, so for my student who's building the go-kart, probably not going to have a letter of recommendation about that go-kart experience, right? That is something that they are doing completely on their own with their own money that they are raising from working at this fast food restaurant, right? They don't have an advisor or a mentor or a teacher or somebody who's overseeing it. It's literally a 15-year-old and his 15-year-old friend who are doing this. So there's not going to be a letter of recommendation there. But my student who's doing the nails, that student already has received a letter of recommendation from the person who was the site supervisor at the very first volunteering location that she was volunteering for something completely unrelated to the nails initially. She was just doing that to get required volunteer hours for an organization that she's involved in. So that just was a happy accident, right? But then she was able to take it and turn it into something else. And so she has a letter of recommendation from the site where she was volunteering. So depending on what your student's activity and project is, they may also be able to have the person who oversaw them in that role write them a letter of recommendation. But if they don't have a letter of recommendation, if they don't have a certificate of excellence, if they don't have an award from the mayor for, doing this volunteering service, that is totally fine. Oftentimes, some of the most impactful and genuine activities don't have some sort of official piece to submit because the student wasn't doing it for that, right? They were doing it for themselves. They were doing it because this is something they're genuinely interested in and not for a means to an end. Right. So if they don't have something concrete from an adult verifying them, colleges will not bat an eye at that. That is not something to worry about. The student will be able to showcase in other places, the impact that they've had and the work that they've done. One thing I do want to mention really quickly is about nonprofits. So I hear this a lot, and I've been hearing it more in recent years than when I first started this work. Students will say, well, I want to come up with an organization that addresses this need in the community. Okay, great. And then their next statement is, so my first step will be to create a nonprofit. Wrong. Let's get away from feeling like we need to create a nonprofit in order for a personal project to be genuine or official or legit. Okay. So The student who is doing this mural project has helped multiple other nonprofit organizations within the greater Raleigh, North Carolina area. This student has a board. This student has multiple people volunteering under them. This student is organizing this entire thing. This student does not have a nonprofit, right? Because the nonprofit was going to require a lot of paperwork and succession planning and all of these types of things. And that student felt like, I just don't want to deal with any of that. I just want to do the work, right? I just want to get involved and like do this. And if I can do this without having it be a nonprofit, great. And so that's what they did. And that student had a very successful college application cycle at, all of the schools that they were most excited about, right? So let's get away from the thought that we need to have a nonprofit. I would say the vast majority of time, we do not need to worry about a nonprofit. And colleges are not necessarily going to think that one student's involvement in an activity is more legitimate than another's because the one student had a nonprofit and the other student didn't. So take that off of your plate of things that you have to do. So the bottom line is that when you're helping your student think about how to spend their summer, the most important thing is to think about, what do they actually care about? What would they want to be doing to start with? And then help them facilitate those steps. But as the adult in the room, don't take it over for them. As a type A mom myself, I know that it can be really hard not to jump in and say, this is a great idea. And then we could do this and this and this. And now it's become my project and it's not my child's project. So as hard as it is, we want to facilitate, but we don't want to take over. We want to help them come up with ideas, help put them in the position to enable their ideas, but we really want them to be able to take this on their own and give themselves the pride of the ownership and the growth that comes with it. So I will open this up for Q&A. In the meantime, I will be back on May 3rd, and we will be talking about rising seniors. So if you have a current junior, that'll be a really good one to tune in for. Rising seniors, what do you need to be doing right now? Like May of junior year, what do you need to be focused on after those AP exams are done to set yourself up for a really nice fall? Okay, so Stephanie says she can hear me now. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yay!
Sorry about that. I'm sure you said amazing things.
So Stephanie is so amazing. Stephanie is, as I said, a consultant on our team. She comes with such great experience and background. She also was an application reader and read applications at a highly selective private institution. She has so much insight when it comes to this. And she also helped co-develop our LEAP program, which is what we use to help guide students through just thinking about their extracurricular activities and planning these activities. So I was really excited for y'all to hear from Stephanie. But Stephanie, was there anything that you felt like you wanted to say that I missed?
Sure. Well, I didn't really hear anything that you said, and I'm sure you gave great insight. If I can offer anything to parents, it would be how admissions view these on the other side. And so one question that we always ask is, what does the student care about when no one is watching? Maybe you touched on that, but I want to know what a student, if they start something without being told to, there's no grade, there's no coach, there's no deadline. And why we look at this, because it signals genuine curiosity and commitment. Okay. Creating something from scratch is so different than just joining. Joining's good. But a project like this can show that you identify a problem or an interest and you take action. And colleges value this because that can translate into their community through research, leadership, innovation. So I think it's important to know why we're looking on the other side of the desk as a valuable piece of the application. It highlights depth over checklist building. So many things look the same, and that's okay. Students are going to be part of athletic teams and clubs, but a unique project, something that was developed by a student, can really add dimension and help them stand out.
I love that. Yes, thank you. And I did not say that. So that's
okay. Good.
cool. Perfect.
Good.
I would love, so I did give an overview on kind of how to brainstorm an authentic project, thinking about, what the students are already interested in and building from there, some different questions to ask to help them start thinking about what they're curious about, what problems they'd like to solve, what's already coming up on their algorithm, on their socials. So, but I love, any other tip that you have, because you do so much of this so well with your students. I would love some insight on that.
I I think you hit it, but just asking how am I demonstrating a real world application of interests? And those interests can be connected to an academic area, but I'm sure you said it doesn't always have to be. It could just be a passion. So I just want to see real world application. Say it's biology, maybe they started a blog or an environmental initiative. Maybe they're an artist or musician and they composed something interesting or they performed, or if they're an athlete, maybe they organized a community soccer clinic. So, real world application and then serving the community. I think that takes it to the next level.
Yeah, I love that. Like doing something. So I was saying sometimes the students' activities that I've had, they've started with something that was just like for them, like taking a class. I told you about my student who like took the class
Yeah.
and did the nail certificate, right? Like that
Right.
was for her. But
Hmm.
then it turned into, this other thing that is now positively impacting others, which I really love.
Exactly. And our LEAP curriculum really speaks to that. We start inward, in our younger years, we start with self, and then gradually we build out. We all have skills. So I don't want us to keep our skills to ourselves and our talents to ourselves. I want us to share it, share our gifts with others. And colleges love to see that. And it's not, in the end, it's not about impressing colleges. Sure, it will advance your application, but you're learning something, and this is so much growth happens through these projects. That's really neat to see.
I love that. That's a perfect place to end on. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad you were able to hear me in the end. That's perfect. Well, thank you everybody for joining and for sticking around through our technical difficulties. That's what happens when you are live, right? You just have to roll
That's
with
what
it.
happens.
But thank you so much. And yeah, check us out back here on May 3rd to learn more about what your juniors should be doing right now to minimize your stress as a family for fall of senior year. If you'd like to know more, you can find so much information on our website, advcp.com. We have our YouTube channel, we have blogs, we have our podcast that Stephanie is the host of. I dropped that in there as well. So many great resources. And you can also schedule a consultation there if you would like to learn more about working with our team. So I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we will hopefully see you again in a few weeks. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.